is to say about this game. It's really cute and charming, comfy.
Yeah, basically. So we were basically here to introduce ourselves, but the real stars here are our commentators. If you'd like to introduce ourselves, we're pretty much going to be quiet during the race, but yeah, two lovely people were gracious enough to commentate. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves too.
Hello, my name is Ice Blue. I'm going to be doing commentary here, and I have another person in the booth with me.
Yes, that would be me, Bomberman Drew, and honestly, it's a real privilege to be here at GDQ for a great cause and what will be a phenomenal race.
All right, so I think on that note, I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic, and you can give us a countdown whenever at Ice and Birdman.
Sounds good. All right, so is there anything you want to kind of go over before we start the race, or should we just start the race before and then go over the things?
Yeah, I think we can dive straight in.
Okay, all right. So runners, are you ready? We'll start in...
Yes.
All right, cool. We'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So this is Link's Awakening. It is a remake of the original Game Boy Link's Awakening. And they've pretty much done a really good job of just kind of upscaling everything and making it look very charming. It's very interesting. The route is completely different from the original version. And it's got its own, charm to the game. We run the game in German, just because it's shorter, less text boxes in German, so it makes the game, go a little bit quicker. And so this is a glitchless run, and the biggest thing in this run is pretty much just movement tech and combat. That's going to be our biggest time saves here. Birdman, you want to go over just kind of how the movement optimizations and things like that go?
Yeah, certainly. With glitchless in particular, it really is that showcase of just pure optimization of movement. There are some glitches, or rather, no glitches in this run. There are some major tricks that we'll see later on, but primarily, especially as kind of showcased here as we're moving on the beach, players are going to be really focusing on every single kind of enemy pattern and kind of corner and optimization that they can take. There's so many opportunities throughout the run to kind of shave seconds away with very clever manipulation of enemies. And that's really what we're going to be shining a spotlight on. Just all the little decisions that players are making, and even kind of the most innocuous looking screens. There's so much depth to every screen on Link's Awakening, so it'll be fun to spotlight some of those moments in this run today.
One thing I'd like to point out, if it looks like a glitch that they're doing, just don't believe it. It's not. We do call a lot of things like tricks that we did kind of classify as not a glitch. So there is a bomb boost that we do later on in the run. That just kind of saves us from having to collect a couple of keys in a dungeon, and it shaves off a few minutes, actually.
One really exciting thing in anticipation for this run, it's been honestly a real privilege watching both runners prepare for this tournament, because it's actually pushed forward the game of Link's Awakening enormously for this category in the last week. Both runners have been so incredibly consistent in their practice, hitting close to 139, nearly 138 pace, which is where the world record sits. And we've even seen in the last week, for practice for this run, that record broken. So both runners, incredibly consistent in their practice. It's going to be a really close race. They're at the top of their game, and I just expect that we're probably going to see something at that level probably today. So I'm really excited, given everything we've seen already this week.
Yeah, both these runners have been doing a really, really great job with their practice, and it's been an honor just to kind of watch both of them just practice this and showcase just what kind of skill level they have for this entire game. So they did collect the 50 rupees here in that cave. We are going to need those rupees in just a bit after we go and turn in that mushroom. We're going to need to get the powder so we can basically kind of turn Talon from a raccoon back into a human because he
Didn't work out
decided
so well
that it
for
was a
him.
good idea to just kind of eat the forest mushrooms, and it kind of put a little curse on him. So yeah, and if you don't hit him with the powder, basically it just puts you kind of like in a lost wood state. So if you try to move up, it'll just put you back into like another section of the woods. And so we need to remove that curse so he stops messing with us. And then the rupees, when we need those for, we do have to go through. So this is glitches. We do have to do a good bit of the quest chain here. So we do need to go to the crane
That
game.
crane
here
game is a
and,
very dangerous
you know,
moment in
pick
the
up
run. It's like
the Yoshi doll
the Yoshi
to
doll
start that
represents, for a
quest
lot of
chain.
glitchless runners, like a real run killer moment. It's especially intimidating kind of in this format where if you miss that initial kind of shot of the crane, even if you're kind of aligned dead on, as we'll see shortly, Yoshi's really keen on just slipping straight out. And if that happens, it represents like a hefty chunk of time loss. So it's always kind of a breath of fresh air if you've kind of reached that moment. But in anticipation of it, it's like very early, we see kind of a moment where the race can kind of go in one direction or the other. It's a very early inflection point.
Yeah, like you could be directly under that Yoshi doll and it could just fall directly out of the claws. And
Yeah, it's pretty tense. Yeah.
It's crazy, you know. So just a couple of little like optimized movement here, just to kind of avoid those moblins hitting you with the spears there. And we're gonna make our way back over to Mabe Village, and we're gonna make our way down here to the crane mini game here. One thing you'll see a lot of runners, or you know, later on in this run, we do have. So this game does have like an auto load feature. So the game saves whenever you change any screens or whenever you grab like any kind of item from a chest. And we're going to actually utilize that a lot throughout this run just to kind of bring us back.
We saw on both
Ooh.
runners. This is exactly what we were talking about. Like Yoshi's very slippery. Even though that the crane was dead on. Let's see, are they going to both reset? Yep. It's always a little unpredictable when it gets to this stage because once Yoshi's offset, there's not really, the backup is just kind of cross your fingers and hope that it manages to stay in.
Yeah, it looks like the shop owner there kind of greased up the Yoshi doll there.
Looks like Teja's gonna leave and reset. I think that's a good decision. Luckily, because we collected those 50 rupees, we have more than enough to be able to rebuy and kind of get more attempts.
Yeah, to circle back around. So yeah, the game saves whenever you collect an item from a chest or whenever you move, you know, throughout the dungeon. We kind of utilize that a lot in the run, just to kind of. So there's an auto load feature, which we utilize to you know, we take the save that we have from the like opening a chest and things like that, and it brings us back to the front of the dungeon, and it saves us a ton of time on, you know, returning and walking back ourselves.
Nice. It looks like we got a success from Tej on the next attempt for the trading game, so he's going to go ahead and trade in the Yoshi doll for the ribbon. We see Glan has traded the ribbon in for the dog food. Despite that being a small setback early on, there's so many opportunities throughout the run where this time can be made up. So even an early lead doesn't mean anything for this race. It can really go backwards and forwards throughout many different points of the run that represent this level of risk.
Any chance we have a little time to slip in some donations?
Absolutely.
This is a perfect moment.
Great. Well, for one thing, I want to tell everybody that we are almost to $191,000 raised. So over the course of this run, we could hit $200,000 raised for Doctors Without Borders. And we are also just shy of $26,000 toward that 5 Nights at Freddy's security breach incentive. We have $100 from Duke Firebird saying, "Hey, Glenn and Tej, greetings from the lounge. I wish you were here in person, but I'm still cheering you both on in the crowd. You both are excellent representatives for Link's Awakening. Love you both. Good luck." Have time for a couple more?
Absolutely.
Yep, go ahead.
Great. We have $15.79 from DeKitty Cat saying, "I've been watching GDQ for a couple years now, and it's great to see the return to in-person events after the past couple years. Best of luck to TGH and Glenn on their race, and let's unlock that 5 nights at Freddy's Run. $20 from Meta Knight. I played so much Link's Awakening DX on the Game Boy Color, and I love this remake. Have fun with the race, and shout out to the cutest Zelda mini-boss, Smasher.
Smasher is adorable. This
We also have
dungeon...
Oh, sorry,
please
go ahead. $20 from Joe, saying, keep up the good work. Looking forward to the Link's Awakening run in a bit. Greetings from Heidelberg, Germany. Please, go ahead.
So in Dungeon 1, we're already starting to see a significant difference between the approaches that both runners will take. And one really important aspect of glitchless in this category is routing around a power-up called Piece of Power. Essentially, as runners are killing enemies throughout the game, especially kind of in the early to the mid-game, they're making a mental note of exactly how many at any given moment they've killed for anticipation to use that power-up at very strategic locations. We'll find that in a later dungeon they'll use it on a boss, and earlier in the run, as we'll see shortly, they'll use it in a mini-boss scenario. But interestingly, we've seen Tej, as he maneuvered through the long horizontal corridor, he took the shorter route that passes through enemies, whereas Glan took the longer route, circumventing the need to kill those enemies, because Glan is kind of opting for a different strategy here where he's going to be kill sparse early, really wants to mitigate the number of kills, ensure that they're on a low count, so when he gets to a specific dungeon later in the game, he can predictably drop that piece of power to better fight the mini-boss. The reason being that piece of power, in addition to giving Link some additional speed, also increases the damage. So really find that useful to be able to tackle some of the tougher mini-bosses and really expedite the time loss. Teach, however, is going for an approach which kind of plays a longer game, not going to get it for that initial mini-boss, but kind of starts his count a little later. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of different enemies that both runners will pick up respectively, and there's just going to be very subtle differences in the patterns that you'll see as a result. So that's something interesting to look out for.
So this is Rolling Bones. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Boss just kind of pushes like a big giant rolling pin, and you just jump over it and just kind of corner him and just slash him 8 times, and he's gone. So over on Glen's side, we have the first boss of Dungeon 1. It's a giant hamburger that's really nasty looking. No, this is if you're familiar with the Zelda franchise, this is actually called Moldor. And it's, this boss is exactly the same in pretty much every version. The only major difference that this boss has is that whenever you hit the weak spot on the back of its tail, it does close that weak spot for a good a good little bit. And both the runners here are going to be using kind of like a timing mechanism, just to kind of know like when to jump back in and do another spin slash. It just takes 2 spin slashes to take down this boss, and then you're free to take the cello here.
Runners are so familiar with this boss. Typically, you would see that a good method for a new runner to kind of learn this is to jump 8 times to kind of get that rhythmic timing. But at a certain point, when you've played this long enough, the audio cues of music kind of provide a really good avenue to differentiate, or just to have that moment of, okay, yes, and now. So you can hit the tail on the frame. And that's both runners with the first instrument.
So the cutscene right after that instrument there is actually kind of like a big difference in the terms of like the language. So we set the language to German on the Switch itself. So in every other language, the ending cutscene there actually has 2 screens that show up that that tell you where to go next, where's the next location of the next instrument, things like that. In German, it actually is just 1 screen, so it saves a good bit of time over every dungeon that you clear. And then every general text box after that, pretty much any kind of conversation you have, the text boxes just kind of fly through faster in German. So you're going to see both the runners here. They're going to be heading back down to the beach. They do need to continue that quest chain and turn in that dog food to Mr. Croc here. And he's going to give us a set of bananas, and those bananas are going to be pretty key to opening a section of the game later on called Canalit Castle. Shout outs to Canalit for, you know, only showing up in the glitchless route.
Yeah, glitchless is very special for that. Canalit is a really fascinating dungeon with a lot of unique enemies and interactions, so it's really good to see that showcased in glitchless.
Do we have time to sneak in a couple more donations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
Great. We have $25 from Knave357. As promised, here's $5 for each missed square boost during my Sly 2 run, plus maybe a little extra. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to watch the rest of this event. Hype! We also have $500 from Waterbomb saying, Link's Awakening was the defining game of my childhood, and I'm so happy to be working from home so I can actually watch the run. Good luck. Thank you so much to both of you for those really generous donations.
Yo, thank y'all for all the donations coming in. I did actually hear from a little bird, if we have time at the end of this run, if y'all want to get some donations in, I believe both of our runners did say that they would go to the library after they finish the run and actually read a book in German.
You definitely don't want to miss that. Watchers of SGDQ 2020 might be familiar with Tej reading a book previously, so having a run back of that would be quite fun. So we're currently in Moblin Cave. We've just seen Glan defeat the Moblin King. Now we're going to watch Tej do the same. This boss is really quite tight on its timing. Once it charges and hits the wall, it's very rhythmic. You want to be hitting kind of not at the exact moment that you can swing, but just a little afterwards. Just kind of really defeat the boss quickly. There we go, perfect. We have little moments of RNG kind of permeate throughout the whole run. So as we walk in to rescue Bow Wow, we see Bow Wow, perfect RNG there, kind of leapt towards Link. There's so many kind of moments throughout the run where we discover enemy patterns just kind of being all over the place practically, and finding that they're kind of saving you seconds here or there. Like that room itself could maybe be a delta of about 2 seconds lost if Bow Wow kind of runs and hides in the corner. So these are all the little moments that we see in Glitchless where time really adds up quickly. Speaking of which, as Glan is heading over to the swamp to enter the Bottle Grotto, the second dungeon, we also have a similar moment where we're relying on Bow Wow to eat the flowers, so there, immediately. Sometimes he's a little hesitant, not wanting to eat the flowers, as we see here. Ideally, he eats them as quickly as possible, not getting in the way. Oh, Bow Wow's, there we go, perfect. Can take a few seconds extra there.
Bow Wow had to think for just a moment whether or not, you know, he was hungry. Turns out he was. He ate literally every flower in front of D2.
This is another terrifying room with the 2 Stalfos. It feels like there are like 1,000 patterns that these Stalfos can move in, but Glenn got a relatively good one.
Bow Wow showing he's pretty hungry on Tej's side as well, eating all the flowers in the way. So this dungeon is pretty, like, it's pretty nice to watch, just to kind of like how like tech goes in this dungeon. So Stalfos are weird. They only react to whenever Link just, you know, standing slashes kind of deal. So they'll jump away whenever Link does slash his sword. But if you do spin slashes, the Stalfos actually just don't react to it at all. So you'll see a lot of the times like the runners will do like kind of like a jumping spin slash into the Stalfos, and they will just kind of accept their fate there. It's pretty nice. You'll see that again in, I believe, Dungeon 3, when we go back in to collect some rupees. We have on Glan's side here, we have a mini boss called Hinox. Not sure the name here, but yeah, Hinox takes 8 slashes. If you slash, he'll actually throw out a bomb just to kind of like counterattack, or he'll dash into you and throw you across the room if he grabs you. Glan making quick work there. You'll see on Tej's side now. Optimally, you want to do a jumping 3/, another jumping 3/, and then 2 normal slashes, and that'll take care of Hinox. Just kind of quickly go through that boss. Pretty simple. And we're going to pick up the major item here. This is the power bracelet. That is going to allow us to now pick up pots and rocks in order to just kind of progress further into this dungeon.
We did see kind of the execution for the fight with Glan was pretty good, but we did notice that Hinox managed to grab him, so that's kind of allowed Tej just a few extra seconds. You can already see that kind of gap that we noticed originally with the Yoshi doll is starting to slim down.
So this room is pretty interesting. There's actually you find out like earlier in the dungeon through the like little statue of the owl. You place the beacon there and he'll let you know that there is actually a specific set pattern that we have to kill these enemies in. So we have to kill the Pulse Voice, the jumping little bunny, the Keese, and then the kind of little Stalfos, the hooded Stalfos. We have to kill them in that particular order in order for the chest to spawn. And that chest contains our Nightmare Key, which will lead us to the boss of this dungeon.
So it was a little bit of a hectic room. We saw there that the Pulse Voice and the Keys are kind of moving next to each other, and they're really enticing you to accidentally slash one in the wrong order. But luckily managed to get through there without too much problem.
So coming up here on Glan's side, we do have, I like to call this boss pretty interesting, at least in its second phase. So whenever you break Genie's pot here, Genie is going to basically just kind of start spinning around the room with a clone of themselves, and you're looking for a specific clone. I believe it's the one furthest away from Link.
Yes, that's correct.
And that one is going to be where actually Genie is going to spawn when they're done spinning around. So we're going to be looking for the one just closest to like the walls that's spinning. And sometimes the spin around the room can be quick. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer. It just really depends on how Genie's feeling today.
Ideally, with perfect execution, runners can expect to finish this boss in 2 cycles. Just with quick enough slashes, that's enough to take the Genie down.
Yeah, we have to throw the pot against the wall 3 times. He throws 8 fireballs out, and then he retreats back into the little pot there, and then tells you, hey, haha, you can't hit me. But joke's on the Genie, we just throw the pot against the wall. Really nice fight from Glan there.
Yep, perfectly executed.
And you can see the difference in the fight there. Glan opted into using like a jumping spin slash with a few slashes, and Tej is over doing 4 slashes. Ideally, you want to do 4 slashes each cycle in order to 2 cycle. And this is where you're gonna kind of see like a health route difference between our 2 runners here. Glan does opt to pick up a few extra heart containers, whereas Tej is gonna be kind of ignoring a few, a little bit more of a riskier strat. Just the health differences are different because some dungeons later on, they do have a bunch of enemies that do kind of like some massive damage, a couple hearts here. And then like bombs actually do 2 hearts of damage to Link as well. So you'll see a big difference in terms of like, overall health management.
Represents a good time save for Tej, in that he saves approximately 6 seconds for not picking up the heart. And for Glan, in regards to the Piece of Power run, it changes the formula. So Piece of Power will drop after 32 kills, plus the total number of hearts. So for a runner with 3 hearts, that represents 35. So then we're going to see 36 from Glan when he has the full number of hearts. 37, sorry.
All right, so we're gonna make our way back over here to Mabe Village. We're gonna return Bow Wow to their rightful owner here, and we're gonna get, you know, a very, very enticing smooch. You see like a little blush coming out from Link. It's just another big, like a cute little charming effect that this game offers. It's just like you get to actually see like the facial expressions that Link offers, and they're actually really, really, really adorable.
It's a wonderful reimagining of the original. It's just like the toy-like aesthetic is really charming.
All right, so we're gonna see Glenn here buy 3 sets of bombs, and then after spending 30 rupees here, he's just gonna completely rob the shop. You know,
So I think
just kind of like give the shopkeeper like, hey, I'm here to buy your perfectly reasonably priced goods, and then I'm gonna, you know, walk out of here with your shovel.
when Link was shipwrecked on Koholint Island, along with his sword and shield, I think he lost his buy 30 bombs, get 1 shovel free coupon. So, you know, he's expecting to have it. He doesn't. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a misunderstanding.
So the shopkeeper doesn't actually enjoy the fact that, you know, he's being robbed. So he does actually just kind of murder Link in cold blood upon entering the shop, because we do have to go back to that shop to steal another item. So Link is not the best patron to have for your shop here. So the reason we need the shovel, there is a kind of like a warp point coming up over here by the Seashell Manor, and we're going to use this warp point kind of frequently later on in the run, but we activate it now in order to just have it there, and then we're going to come here and turn in the bananas to Kiki, who then summons all of his friends to build a bridge so we can enter Canalet Castle.
It's a pretty good trade for bananas, I'd say.
Yeah,
It also represents a crucial reason why we had to turn in Bow Wow. As the owner of Canalet Castle, Richard, is a cameo from a classic GBA game or Game Boy game called The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls. Doesn't like Bow Wow, so in order for us to progress further, that turn-in was necessary. But for now, we're going to have to collect the 5 golden leaves from his castle in order to progress into the 3rd dungeon. Honestly, this castle is a blast. Like, this is a really fun part of the run. Lots of really interesting enemies. Like, lots of interesting strats that we also see that kind of delve into the resource management for both runners. They're going to have to pay very careful attention throughout the run to the number of bombs and arrows they expend. And any extra arrow that's wasted or used in one place is kind of taking it from another. So it's kind of always a very careful balance of that resource management.
Yeah, it's resource management in this run is really, really, really tight. Arrows are a pretty massive thing here, because we do use arrows to kind of do a lot more damage to certain enemies. So there's
Yes, exactly right.
That's one big benefit of counting your kills there. So Glenn is going to have Piece of Power throughout the entirety of Canalet Castle here, which doubles your sword strength, and it also pretty much doubles your move speed as well.
That's going to be vital for the mini-boss that we're going to see in an upcoming room, which is the Ball and Chain Knight. We're going to watch Glenn kind of maneuver quickly through the halls of Canalet Castle into the 3rd leaf just here. That's a really fun strat there. Using a bomb arrow to detonate against the torch to free the knight that was hiding inside the wall, and then a second one to immediately detonate it and cause the leaf to fall immediately on you.
It makes you
giving him enough time.
It makes you wonder, who trapped that guard in that wall and then like was like, here, hold this golden leaf. Like, terrible. So you're gonna see a really nice kill there from Glenn with the jumping slashes. Typically that guard takes 10 slashes with normal sword, but with Piece of Power it takes 5, and you get your golden leaf there.
We're going to see that difference immediately with Teach here, although perfectly executed fight without Piece of Power.
And then and you have your guard hiding in the pits here. One single arrow and then 2 bomb arrows will take that guard down and give you the final golden leaf here that we need to basically go turn into Richard, who we don't even know yet, by the way. We never even met Richard. We're just out here picking up golden leaves.
With runners use a really nice trick where they fire the initial shot off screen, where Mad Bomber is kind of centered idle in the middle of the potholes, enables you to get 1 free shot without having to deal with the movement RNG.
Yeah, the 6 pits there, Mad Bomber just kind of picks a pit that he would like to exit from, and it's just pure RNG there.
Here's the Custard Prince himself, with some of the most blessed sound effects in the game.
Blessed.
Run blessed, truly blessed.
Do we have a moment for a couple more donations?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Ah, great. We have $50 from Ori Sky saying, been looking forward to this race for quite a while. Both TGH and Glenn are great runners of this game. Good luck to both of you. I would throw in my usual dad joke here for Tej, but unfortunately I cannot think of any. Anyway, dropping the facade. Good luck with the rest of the run, and say hi to Papyrus for all of us.
It's a superb donation message.
We also have $5,000 from Fangamer saying, hoot, hoot. Hey everybody, Fangamer here. We're dropping in on day 2 of SGDQ 2022 to remind everyone about our official merch collection, where 100% of the profit from sales goes on to support MSF. Your purchases make donations like this possible, and you get to take home an awesome souvenir of the event. Find exclusive items like the virtual attendee badge by heading over to fangamer.com/GDQ. Hoot!
I bought all of the pins from there just before this race. I just couldn't resist. They are gorgeous.
I'm gonna be buying them after, so.
Yes, so good. We're about to see Glan enter Key Cavern and Tej not too far behind. This dungeon is chaotic in terms of the kind of enemy patterns that we can expect. As epitomized by this room, it has a lot of kind of frenetic, fast-moving enemies that you have to be very careful to maneuver around. They're often quite quick, especially with the gels, to grab and slow Link down, so it really represents a place where you can kind of lose time just kind of with one small slip of the control stick. Really tests the runner's capability of reacting to enemy patterns that can be very unpredictable and volatile, which makes this run quite exciting.
Yeah, just the general movement tech in this game it's really, really incredible to see. Like these top level runners with like this movement tech is just it keeps you like on screen the whole time, because like you never know like what's gonna happen. Like enemy patterns are just they're so different for every runner. So our goal objective here is we need to collect 4 keys. There is a section in the middle of this dungeon here that has just 4 key blocks. And we're gonna, we have to go around the dungeon just kind of picking up 4 keys so we can make our way around that little square.
We're also going to see a lot of strategic use of auto-loading, as you mentioned earlier, Ice, like several times throughout the dungeon to just quickly maneuver through as best as possible.
Yeah. So these are called Judango Snakes. If you're familiar with the Zelda series, there's Judango, and then there's the Judango Snakes. Judango Snakes have a little different of like element of movement. They'll move initially, and each time they move, they keep their mouth open, and we need to feed them a bomb then. And then they'll move 3 times with their mouth closed before we're able to feed them another bomb. And then 3 bombs, they just kind of explode and release a fairy. Not sure how the fairy got there, but glad we were able to save them.
Here is a very transformative item that we've just received for both players, which is the Pegasus Boots. Now the movement really becomes kind of a game of optimization and just kind of very close cornering. As if Link accidentally kind of is too slow in maneuvering around walls, he can bonk into them, which kind of takes a second away from your time every time it occurs. But it also gives you great opportunity to maneuver super quickly throughout the game. So we'll be seeing the overworld patterns now become a lot more intricate, also within the dungeons, as players are doing their best to take every single kind of frame and angle that they can.
Ooh, Glenn getting some pretty not favorable patterns there in that bomb room there, but was able to pull that right out and get that key that he needed before needing to auto load to come back into the front of the dungeon.
It's quite low in health there, but luckily when a runner is at pinch health, or once their hearts are beeping, the game essentially ups the rate at which hearts can drop to kind of a base level to about 80% at the best case. So runners always know that they have a fallback in these sort of situations and can maneuver to enemies to quickly kill them and grab a heart just in case.
Alright,
We're
so
just seeing the runners.
Yeah, you're going to see both the runners here, just picking up that 300 rupees. We're going to need those 300 rupees later to listen to what I like to say is the best song in the game.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you like frogs, then you'll love this song. So we're going to make our way back over here, back to the center of the dungeon here. We're going to pick up the final small key of the dungeon, and then we're going to make our way over to the boss of the dungeon. But we're also going to see, for the first time, a familiar face, an enemy that typically doesn't exist in the Zelda universe. We're going to see a nice little 2-second cameo of a Piranha Plant, which is interesting. You saw Goombas earlier at Candlelit Castle, and now you get to see the Piranha Plant.
Very mysterious and dreamlike inclusion, I'd say. Also, one additional nice thing about getting the boots is just the little tippy-tap sound that Link makes as he runs everywhere. It's just adorable, I have to say.
Oh yeah, the pitter-patter is really, really adorable. So we're going to see both of our runners here entering Gigazole here, or Slime Eye. And the object here is we need to slash the eye enough to get the boss to kind of like split up enough so we can dash through the eyeballs and just split the boss in half, and then we're able to take out the eyes. We landed with a really, really nice kill here. But
This boss is literally a game of divide and conquer. Oh, excellent for both runners. One cycle.
Yeah. So this boss has a very interesting element. Depending on like where you kill the boss, it actually determines where the heart container spawns in the room. So as you saw, on Glen's side, Glen got the low heart spawn, which is what you don't want to see, and then Tej got the upper spawn. Just depending on like where you kind of KO the boss there, will determine like where that heart container spawns. We do have a little bit of time here. We're gonna see both of our runners here, just kind of making our way over to Animal Village to kind of do a very long quest chain here.
Awesome, then I'll spawn some donations. First, I want to let people know that we have less than $5,000 to go to hit $200,000 for Doctors Without Borders, and every donation of every size moves the needle. Like this $10 from Prinny Tonic saying, I used TGH's guides to learn the any % route of this run. It was not stuff like the Hinox Warp that broke me, but D4 Bomb Jump. Happy to see two great runners show this game off. Or how about this $25 from Hunta 121. Futter, Ask Ice Blue. Or this $50 donation from Phylion. Glenn and Tej are two of my favorite runners, and it's a joy to see them face off like this. Good luck to both runners. Don't get lost in the egg, and always enjoy your frog songs. Folks, again, we are less than $5,000 away from hitting $200,000 by the end of the online block, so please keep those donations rolling on in. And thank you so much for supporting MSF.
Absolutely.
Those are some wonderful donations. The foreshadowing for D4 Bomb Jump is a very fitting one, as that represents another pivotal and quite scary moment in the run that we'll be encountering shortly. But Ice, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what the runners are doing in terms of the setup to reach that end game and the next dungeon?
Yeah, sure. So we have to make our way. So in order to set up like the whole quest chain that we're doing right now, we have to make our way over to Animal Village, and we need to speak to the sleeping walrus there. And the walrus kind of tells you, you know, that they miss Marin singing, which, I mean, I miss Marin singing. Her singing is pretty amazing, honestly. And the walrus just kind of indicates that they want to listen to Marin sing for them. So we need to speak to the walrus in order to activate the kind of like the flag in the game to spawn Marin at the beach. But in the meantime, we're going to make our way over here to the Dream Shrine, and we're going to pick up the ocarina, which we're going to use a few times in the run, multiple times in the run, to just kind of warp around the overworld and to play the best song, which I heard that frog songs are good for your soul. So you definitely want to hear those.
This segment also sees us learning the Ballad of the Windfish, which will ultimately open the egg on Mount Tamaranch and lead us through to the ending.
Yeah, I think it's one of those moments like whenever we do get the Ballad of the Windfish, it's just kind of like you just gotta enjoy the singing because it is very, very good.
It's a moment we'll stop to appreciate for sure.
So we kind of have like a little scene here with Marin and Link just kind of sitting on a hollow tree, enjoying the ocean waves, and she just kind of tells you that she's got some bad premonitions about like what's going to happen with the island, and you know just how she enjoys like the beach and everything. It's a little cute scene, but then you realize that Marin is trying to let you know something, but you don't kind of pick up on that. That maybe everything is not what it seems. Maybe everything is just a dream. Maybe this run is a dream. Maybe you're a dream. Maybe I'm a dream. What do you think, Birdman?
One thing's for sure is she knows that you're a thief, so that's just kind of set the tone for the relationship permanently, I think. The other thing that's really remarkable at this moment is that we're 40 minutes into the race, and both runners are remarkably close to one another. Like, it's very, very tight at the moment. This is something I expect to keep going forward. It's really exciting, honestly. We're just about to go and visit the walrus, where we're going to have another musical display treated to us. But that gates another very difficult mini-boss in the overworld that represents like a lot of focus and attention required for the runners to ensure that they manage to get the fastest cycle. It's one that also threatens their health as well as their bomb and arrow resources. So seeing how they maneuver through that is going to be quite interesting in the next minute.
Honestly, the walrus is a giant mood, especially like after listening to Marin sing. It's definitely a mood.
Speaking of a minute, do we have a minute for another donation?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, we have $34.13 from Iwala Koala saying, Glenn, here's lots of blobs to help you out on your race. Good luck. Also, I just have this to say. Blubber, blubber, blub, 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 fodder, blub, blubber, blubber. Thank you so much for all of the blubs.
We'll explain that in due time.
This time will come. We just had a perfect fight there by Glan for Lan Mola, taking it out with 4 bomb arrows in a perfect cycle. Tej not too far behind that. It's a really good fight for Lan Mola on both sides.
Yeah, both runners taking extra care not to let the key fall into the center of that pit, because it does bring you into a cave, which is a pretty big time loss there. So both runners just kind of taking a little extra care there just to not do that. But yeah, we're gonna let Clan here just listen to Marin, so please enjoy the tunes.
As Birdman, I may be biased, but that toucan is the cutest character in this whole game. It's adorable. I wish we saw it more than this one moment.
Yeah, it's the Marin just singing there is just it adds so much more. It's just like how like cute of a charm this game actually has. It's just you just gotta enjoy it.
We're seeing a really wonderful showcase of movement here in the overworld. We're actually moving through Canalet. Quite often runners take the warp to Dampe to get to the next dungeon, to open up Dungeon 4, Angler's Tunnel, but we're actually seeing them maneuver through Canalet and doing this really fun jump that kind of takes you just on the very edge of the staircase and jumping to the ladder. We don't currently have flippers, which would enable us to swim. If you miss that jump, you lose time kind of falling into the water. But again, perfect execution by both runners, getting us to the start of Dungeon 4.
I would like to say if both runners would be okay with just kind of showcasing what it sounds like when Link falls into the water before we pick up the flippers here. It's absolutely adorable, and everybody around the world needs to hear this. But we're gonna make our way over here to the mountain here and go into this cave. And this cave is gonna bring us above, right above the waterfall here, so we can kind of jump straight into D4.
We're now approaching, I think, kind of at the close to the midpoint of the run. This represents a really kind of scary, intense moment, which is that, as mentioned in the donation message earlier, the D4 bomb jump. It's one of the most technical tricks available in the run. It manipulates use of a carefully placed bomb, a carefully timed jump, and a lot of setup that involves kind of frame perfect kind of maneuvering. It's going to be one to watch because it can represent like a lot of time lost if it's not done correctly, with bombs and resources used and health diminished. So it'll be interesting to see how both runners tackle it here. It's definitely a breath of fresh air once you get past this trick. We're going to see Glan at the moment pick up 2 keys. By performing the bomb jump, we skip 2 keys that we would otherwise require for the dungeon. So it represents an enormous skip. But it's a really tense one. So we're just about to see that now.
Oh, Glan getting some unfavorable little water. Nice. Glan getting some pretty unfavorable movement from that little like water. I don't even know what the thing's called. But yeah, both the runners there showcasing just like what Link sounds like whenever he falls into the water with no flippers.
It's definitely Link's best sound effect.
I didn't know drowning could be so adorable.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. So we see TGH managed to pull that off in first try. Glan, a quick second reattempt. But yeah, it's such a fine, really close timing where if you're just even a fraction away with any of the movement required, you'll fall into the pit and require a restart. But really, that's a huge achievement for both runners.
Yeah, that trick is like actually like really, really tight on timing. It requires a lot, honestly. Like timing mechanism with the sword slashes, the ability to throw that bomb kind of like out of bounds a little bit, I would say. Oh, I wouldn't really call it out of bounds. It's just on top of like
just
a
on the wall. And with that, as a result of that kind of initial, like the difference between a second try and a first try, we've noticed that Tej is now, since the Yoshi doll, pulled ahead into the lead marginally. It's really close though, remarkably close. But here's a banger now.
Yeah, we're gonna let this play out.
That's Mambo's Mambo.
Yeah, so that's Mambo's Mambo. that's going to give us the ability to kind of warp around the overworld for all the warp points that we've unlocked. We're going to immediately use that to go to our next destination here.
As both runners are maneuvering to the animal village, this is a good time for a donation, if we have one.
Excellent. We definitely, we always have donations. We have $10 from Not So Elite saying, I have to donate during Link's Awakening. This is my favorite Zelda game, and I feel lucky I get to watch 2 runs at the same time. When this was released, I stood Link in the library, and the music made me cry. Fantastic game. Good luck, runners. Folks, just to let you know, we are less than $100 away from $197,000. We are barely over $3,000 away from hitting that $200,000 mark, and we broke $28,000 on the 5 Nights at Freddy's incentive. So please, please keep the donations coming in. You're doing amazing.
Yeah, keep those donations rolling in, please. Especially if you want to hear Tej and Glenn read some books in German.
100%.
That is an experience you just don't want to miss.
This is the part of the run where we notice that the arrow count is very low. Both runners are going to have to be very conscientious of that. We notice that Tej, for example, is picking up the additional arrows in the pot here. Also for Glenn, those will really be essential. Every arrow counts at this moment of the run.
So this is a kind of like a sub-boss that holds the D6 face shrine key. With some well-timed jumping spin slashes, there's kind of like it's arithmetic, just to kind of time those slashes. Because if you slash too fast, the boss actually has kind of like what I like to call invisible iframes. So you'll just kind of like bounce off the boss and not damage and break the armor that you or the shield that you need to break. Both runners, kind of doing a really good job of just kind of timing that out and taking that boss out in 2 spin slashes and 2 arrows.
100%. Even the arrow timing themselves can be really tight, like within a few frames. So accidentally missing that timing would result in kind of a disastrous kind of time delay or a loss of an arrow. So both runners getting that first try again happens so quickly, but it's really a lot of practice, just perfect timing, really well executed.
So this is actually kind of one of my least favorite dungeons, I'd like to say, just because of like everything that goes on. Now, I will say that this dungeon also has one of the best mini bosses in the game. Now, there's plenty of names out there for this mini boss, but there's only one true name to this mini boss. And true fans will tell you that the mini boss of this dungeon is Papyrus. So Undertale fans rejoice. Papyrus made a comeback. And,
the true secret of the dream.
Yeah, it's the true secret of the dream. Papyrus makes a comeback here, and he's guarding not only a plate of spaghetti, but the hook shot. We're gonna see this this mini boss in just a brief moment. We have to clear out this room here.
So as a result of the movement in this dungeon already with the enemy patterns, we've seen the lead rotate quickly between Tej and Glan and Tej and back again, and that's something that we'll see throughout this dungeon. It's just like the small micro RNG and the ability to adapt between rooms just makes it so close. Just like anything can change, just little differences here and there that can push one runner ahead of the other. But they're reacting perfectly. And two excellent fights.
Yeah, 2 excellent fights here. So Papyrus takes 3 bombs in order to basically push him into the next phase. And you fight Papyrus 4 times. And in the 4th time, you finally just KO and drops the hook shot. But we're going to see both the runners here kind of go up and back around just to kind of reset that central push block in order to hit that switch and enter the next fight.
As we're maneuvering through this dungeon, I think one important thing to touch on that we, in the kind of excitement of the fight that we saw in D4, is the reason why we actually left D4 to begin with.
Oh yeah.
Is that something you want to go into, Wes?
Yeah, we kind of just forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
there is actually flag set in the game to whenever you collect only the D4 instrument. Whenever you collect the D4 instrument, there is a a quest, like a mini quest that you have to do if you enter a certain part of the map. That being like just a little bit under where you rescued Bow Wow. There's like a straight line that just kind of crosses the entire overworld. And once you finish D4, it actually, enables this flag, and a ghost spawns. And when that ghost spawns, you can't enter buildings, you can't enter dungeons, you can't do anything until you complete this quest chain. Nice fight by both our runners here for Papyrus, phase 3.
And both of them, I think, save and load, like, precisely loaded at the exact moment. Like, it could not be closer. Like, we're almost frame for frame at the moment for both runners.
Yeah, this is an intense race. But yeah, so the ghost that spawns, we have to bring this ghost all the way to the southern beach. There's an abandoned house, and we need to bring the ghost there to kind of, like, make them, like, reminisce about them, being, alive there. And it takes literally like 9 years to complete this quest, so I don't think you want to be sitting here that long. So we saved D4 as the last dungeon, since we don't actually have to go any further than the Wedfish egg right after D4. So the ghost never spawns. We never bring the ghost home, we never let the ghost spawn, and we never do any of that. So we saved D4 for last, which happens to also be one of the best bosses in the game. And yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It's a very clever routing optimization. It's also one that we'll see. D4 is not the only dungeon that will split, as we'll see a little bit later and touch upon when we get to the Eagle's Tower in Dungeon 7. That's another dungeon that we'll see for similar reasons split apart. So it's quite interesting how we're always kind of diving and maneuvering between spaces, even after kind of fighting the bosses there and not getting the instrument.
I like the use of the word diving, as both of our runners just dove into the water.
Oh yes, good timing. And actually, we're now, speaking of timing, going to be looking to see if the runners get their piece of power in the coming room. This dungeon, its boss, represents a huge opportunity for time loss that's mitigated primarily by use of piece of power. So in the next minute or so, we're going to see, prior to them, now they've got the Nightmare Key to get into the boss room, see if they've been counting well enough to get it to drop at just the right moment. If they manage to do it, they'll be able to finish this boss in one cycle, a boss that's notorious for having kind of an incredible amount of RNG. It's very tricky to work around. Piece of power mitigates that perfectly. So if they manage to get it, that represents a huge time save.
One thing we actually didn't touch up on is just kind of like angular movement for Link. So in this game, you have 8 directions that you can turn, traditionally at least. And then we actually have the ability to, Glenn getting both the acorn and the piece of power, unfortunately. So in this game, if you jump with the feather, you can actually kind of like move Link in kind of like like degrees of angles, and it actually allows you what we call the skewing. And it allows us to kind of like turn Link to a specific degree of angle here, and actually hookshot that block on a very, very small corner in order to skip an entire key in this dungeon. And you'll see now on just this kind of touch up on, like, there's just the RNG element. You'll see that Teach unfortunately was picked up that acorn there, and Glenn has the piece of power, so you'll see the big difference here in terms of the fight. Whereas Glenn gets that one cycle, Teach has to go for 2, but they both had a very, very good run there for that boss.
Teach mitigated to a loss.
Yeah,
Yep,
I'm sorry, go ahead. That boss has a very, very weird set of RNG, to where, like, it has a 1 in 4 chance of picking any of the little holes in the wall that it comes out of, and then it also has another factor where it could be a fake, and you can see the big difference in, like, the boss's eyes, whether or not it's a fake. And if you pull the fake out, you can't do anything with it. It just laughs at you, and you have to wait more.
Massively impressed by that boss fight for both runners. Tej, even despite not having piece of power, really had an excellent first cycle. Only a few hits required on the second one and got a really good pattern for the slimy ult on the second attack. So the difference really not as dramatic as it could be. That's just testament to the skill of the runners and how they managed to deal with what Slimy threw out, or slimy ult.
Both of our runners here are going to be making their way. They already picked up the face shrine key, so they're just going to immediately both kind of just beeline it straight for the next dungeon here.
And as both runners are now going to open Dungeon 6, this is a great time for donations.
All right, we are on the very precipice of $200,000 raised. We have $100 from Summervillain saying, round and round the passageways of SGDQ, left, left, up, right, right, up, left, up. Thank you for showing us how to get through these corridors. We have $25 from Zebra Unicorn saying, hi Tej and Glenn, good luck on the run. The Zebra Cord is rooting for you. I look forward to the day when we can all get back together in person and enjoy some frosty chocolate milkshakes. We also have $25 from Verified Linguini saying, hi, good luck. So hyped to see my man Glenn at GDQ. With all the practice both runners put in for this event, here's hoping for a great race. And we are definitely getting a great race right now. And ladies and gentlemen, we just broke $200,000 for Doctors Without Borders.
Okay, so Face Shrine here. Very, very interesting dungeon. We come in here, we immediately need to come and rush and pick up the level 2 power bracelet. And there's some pretty nice optimizations as far as like collecting the amount of keys that we need. And there's another big element of RNG here in just a brief moment where we kind of rely on an anti-fairy, which is like the little red floaty thing with the eyeballs.
We're going to see indeed Tej's authored trick actually. I think he's named it Scattershot.
Yeah.
It's a really, really clever way of maneuvering through this specific room.
So yeah, they're gonna enter the room at a certain point and just kind of use this anti-fairy to just make a bomb arrow, hit both of those whiz robes. Both runners just kind of making that room just look very easy to one cycle.
It was a perfect showcase of actually both RNGs. I think Glan got the slightly easier pattern where Tej had to use the sword to manipulate the anti-fairy into position to take out the whiz robes. It was like really well done on both. And I affectionately think of this room as the Link's Awakening rhythm game as we slash the tiles to the beat.
Also, can we give a big shout out here to just how good D6's music is?
It's a phenomenal. This is maybe one of my favorite dungeon tracks. It's like really kind of oppressive, but also euphoric. It's just a great mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, both runners getting what again is a really tricky thing to manage, which is stealing the ball from Smasher first. There's an incredibly tight window for that. It looks so simple, but I promise you that takes hundreds of attempts before you can get as good as this. It's really hard to be able to beat Smasher to the ball.
Yeah, both runners, amazing job with that early grab there.
Do we have time to stick in a donation?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Please do.
We have $1,000 from Heidi PhD saying, super excited to finally be here after a 2.5-year wait. The best part is getting to watch the little pitter-patter of little Link feet with my awesome son. Thanks for showing me the excitement that is speedrunning and bringing your old mom along. Love you, bud. Thank you so much for that incredibly generous donation.
That's a wonderful donation. The pitter-patter is truly blessed. It's an amazing sound effect. All of the sound effects in this game are really phenomenally done. It's just a delight to play and listen to.
Yeah, the charm effect behind this game is just it's incredible.
It makes it so eminently replayable, especially when you've played this hundreds of times as a speedrunner. It never gets old. It never gets old to listen to or to look at. It's just adorable. Very charming.
have another instance of just kind of like slashing the tiles to like a little beat here, just to collect another key. And we're gonna make our way up here to go and get to our nightmare key. One big change that this game has to the original is the knights here. So in the original version of the game, the knights actually are not kind of guaranteed to land in the little buttons that you throw them into. Whereas this one, if you throw them on the right angle, they'll pretty much like guaranteed go into the little crevice that they need to go into to activate their switch. And we have
Now we
another.
see both runners are indeed for round 2 of the Judango Snakes. These are very tricky. The pattern of the room, in addition to the Judango Snakes having kind of an additional movement where they can kind of double back and 180 of themselves, makes it really tricky to ensure that the bombs line up, as we saw just there on Tej's screen. They're really doing their best to maneuver away from the bombs, which can cause havoc with your timing here.
Yeah, it just kind of shows you like the differences in RNG there. So this is actually, fun fact, this is actually the only chest in the game that you actually have to smash a pot onto it in order to open it. So with Nightmare and Key in hand, we're gonna, beeline it straight for the dungeon boss, which some of you may recognize, if you're, old enough. It is the mascot of Nickelodeon Kids. We have Face from Nick Jr. coming up here.
This is a really fun version, Facade being kind of a series staple. I think this might be the most fun iteration of the Facade boss fight. And, Glitchless is one of the few runs that we get to actually enjoy Facade. All other categories find a devious way of skipping him. So it's good to see him here. Also, fantastic sound effects.
So both of our runners here, ideally we want to, immediately after our bomb explodes, we want to have another bomb placed here, just to kind of initiate. So the first 3 bombs, Facade will spawn in the center of the room, and then the next 3 hits, he moves around the room. Excellent fight there from Glam, though. Really good RNG where, Facade moved. And then also another excellent fight over there from Tej. Both of our runners here just getting really good patterns there for Facade.
It was excellent execution on the behalf of both runners. It's a very easy fight to take damage on and kind of self-KO using the bomb arrows, but no risk of that here. We're gonna briefly have another end of dungeon cutscene and Owl, followed up by fast travel, so this would be a great time for a donation.
Absolutely. I have $25 from Radio Chew. Link's Awakening was the pack-in game with the Game Boy I received for my 8th birthday. From the second I heard Ballad of the Windfish, I was hooked, and it still gives me feels every time I hear it. It took me 5 years and plenty of help from cousins to beat the game, so it's great to see it absolutely destroyed by 2 amazing runners. Thank you so much for your $25 donation to MSF Radio Chew. Do you have time for another quick one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do a quick one.
All right. We have $20 from Burnt Grapefruit. Been watching GDQ for the past few years. Thought I'd finally pitch in for the first time. Can't wait for the Link's Awakening glitchless run. Well, I hope that your waiting has been rewarded. This has been phenomenal so far. And everyone, it's never too late to make your first donation.
We've found ourselves in Signpost Maze, and we have Gland to thank for the movement optimizations here. This maze really is a movement masterclass. The thing that we attribute to Gland is the 45-degree angle that we see for reading the signs. Quite often we were just walking around and seeing them face on, but you can get a very acute angle on the sign, so you're able to read it as quickly as possible before moving on to the next one. Following the predestined pattern in the maze to be able to quickly finish it and then unlock what I think we've already definitively called the best song in the game.
Do you like frogs, chat? We love frogs here. So enjoy this Mario 2 boss singing the best song in the game. Truly a phenomenal track there.
Impeccable.
All right, so Frog's Song of Soul, the song that's so good, it'll literally revive you. So we're gonna make our way over here, and there's actually a nice little staircase underneath the statue here. And you're going to see both of our runners come down here, and we're going to awaken what we call the rooster. And the rooster that we get here is going to be very, very pivotal to entering the next dungeon here.
In my view, this is precisely why this song is the best song. It raises a legendary rooster that lets you fly across the world. Just truly blessed. Best character in the game.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Well, maybe. Maybe.
As Birdman, I think my bias shows quite clearly. But, Rooster is actually only used once in this category. It's the one kind of part of the game that hasn't managed to find a way to be skipped, which is the Flame Cave. Or rather, it's the Bird Key, I should say. Flame Cave we, in other categories, can skip, but in order to get the Bird Key, we need the bird, which is what we'll be seeing shortly.
Do you have time for...
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. We have $50 from Matt the Cat. Link's Awakening in a GDQ speedrun. Watching the race should be fun. A Game Boy masterpiece. A masterful re-release. A game that compares to none. Thank you so much for your lyrical stylings and the $50 for Doctors Without Borders, Matt the Cat. Please, go ahead.
I was going to say one big thing to note there. Both of our runners had a slight little, minor optimization to their way back to Mabe Village. Glan used the Mambo to warp back to the point, and then you saw Teach just kind of, move back just without the warp. I think both of those are kind of even. I think one of them is a little bit quicker.
We're about to see a really tense jump in the game. I think this is potentially the most tense jump in the game. It saves 2 seconds, but loses 35 if you fail it. It's just this really awkward jump. Yes, perfect. It's really scary. It looks so simple, I promise you, but if you fail that jump once, you'll always think twice before trying to make it.
Yeah, that jump is very nerve-wracking.
Especially when you're on a PB pace and you're just coming into this room, you just kind of feel like, oh, okay, I just really need to focus for this.
Yeah, so if you fall into any pit in that room, it actually throws you out of the waterfall, as you saw after we grabbed the eagle key or the bird key here. And you have to go all the way back around, and it's a huge time loss.
I think it's also worth pointing out again, we're about an hour and a quarter through this run. The runners are still so tantalizingly close at the moment, really neck and neck. The race couldn't really be closer at this point.
So we're gonna make our way here through some connection caves, kind of like a little cave maze. There's just a couple little optimizations. Just the fact that you could just kind of hookshot that thing from the very beginning of the stairs there, in order to cross the whole gap there. We are gonna activate that warp point there, because we are splitting this dungeon. So we are gonna come to this dungeon. We are gonna drop the 4 pillars, and we're gonna defeat a very special boss here.
Shoutouts also to the Telltale Mountain Range music, like maybe one of the best classic Zelda tracks of all time.
Eagle's Tower, Dungeon 7. 80% fans hate it. Glitchless fans love it.
Yeah, this is a wildly different dungeon in every category of the game at the moment. It's quite a wild one. This Glitchless is really kind of an honest version of the run in the sense that you really kind of follow the dungeon quite classically. It's certainly one, like, when you're playing it through for the first time, it can be really tricky to negotiate, but of course we're going to see both runners just breeze through.
So the object here, we need to take this giant iron ball around the entire dungeon, and we need to knock down these 4 pillars. These 4 pillars are actually holding up the top of the dungeon, and they look to be in some really poor shape here. So we're gonna take this iron ball, and we're gonna bring it around with us and crash these pillars down so we can access the top floor of this dungeon. And just like the routing around this dungeon is, it's interesting because you have to leave the iron ball in like certain spots and fall down a pit, just to kind of get it to where we need to get it.
And the logistics of that definitely takes a couple of times to wrap your head around it, but once you get it, it's intuitive. But it's definitely a tricky part. It's a really fun optimization in that room, by the way, using the hook shot to break the last tile, enabling you to leave and open the door before all tiles have been destroyed. Both runners are making their way towards the mirror shield, which will enable them to leave the dungeon and start heading towards D8. But there are a couple of things once we do get the mirror shield to do before that, however. Namely, one of the mini-bosses in the dungeon.
Yeah, I think we'll just kind of hesitate to name this mini boss.
I wonder who it could be, guys. Goes by many names.
I'm not sure, but you may recognize him. We'll see in just a brief second. It's Sans. It's Sans.
Could it be?
Could it be? I didn't know we were playing Undertale. So Sans summons 6 little, I don't even know what those things are called.
I think they're Big Keys is the name.
Big Keys? Interesting, okay. So yeah, Sans is the boss of D7 here. Many runners will deny that it's Sans, but we all know true to our heart that it's Sans. So we're gonna grab this boss key, and then our runners are gonna head back down and break this last pillar, and then we're actually gonna be exiting this dungeon.
It's also a really nice fight for the Grim. Well, oh sorry, Sans. Yep. Almost said the forbidden name. The the mini boss. It's Big Keys. We previously thought to be invulnerable because when you tried to jump slash them, they would always dodge. But But upon repeated attempts, we discovered that they actually have a small window where they are vulnerable afterwards. So we've now taken to actually quickly taking those out instead of having a safe spot in the corner where we typically stood to slash. Save us about 1.3 seconds in the run.
Yeah, we're gonna smash this this final pillar here. And I believe both runners are just gonna drop down the pit and just walk out of the dungeon.
So remarkably close as they're leaving D7, just within like seconds apart.
Just kidding, they're both gonna auto-load.
While they're auto-loading, do we have time to auto-load some donations?
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, we got some for like 2.
All right, we have $25 from Rounderzite saying, absolutely love to see Link's Awakening at GDQ. It's my favorite Zelda game and a lovely remake. And it's even in German. Greetings from Austria. Greetings, Rounderzite, and thank you for the lovely donation. We also have $75 from Cannon Swift. It's time to awake and press that link to donate. How many times can we click that donate link? A wonderful question. And folks, we are over $30,000 for the 5 nights at Freddy's incentive. Less than $60,000 to go. So click that donate link as much as you can.
Okay, so to kind of touch up as to why we split D7. So if you complete D7, it actually sets a flag in the game that puts Marin on Mount Tamaranch. And she's stuck in the middle of that broken bridge. And by completing D7, it places her there. But if we don't beat D7 first and we go over here and do D8, Marin will never get stuck on the bridge, which, you know, thankfully we love Marin here. Marin will never get stuck on the bridge, and that cutscene just takes forever. I believe the cutscene is like 1.5 minutes long, and she just kind of like, she gets saved by Talon, and then she just kind of stares at you for like a good 40 seconds. So we split D7 and do it last because we're able to just drop down and just swim straight to D4 and finish D4 without ever having to go over that bridge ever again.
Here we are with a Turtle Rock boss fight. This one represents quite a scary amount of damage that it can deal. But we use some bomb arrows that we've saved from previous parts of the run to quickly remove its armor, and then aim to try and get as many spin slashes in the air as possible. There is a bit of RNG involved with how it retracts its head, but we're always like quickly trying to maneuver just close enough that we can deal damage, but not so close that it's going to hit us in midair. And that was an excellent fight on both parts, finishing nearly at the same time. That takes us straight into Turtle Rock.
Hey, can we give a big shout out to both of our runners here of how incredibly close like both of these runs have been this entire time.
It's phenomenal how close this is right now. Like you can barely tell them apart moment to moment. Just edging ever so slightly backwards and forwards between the lead. It's just, it could not be closer.
So this dungeon actually has a pretty interesting element. We like to call them like the Roombas. So we need to push these Roombas across all of these pits in order to fill everything up, in order to pretty much like spawn the item of the room, which we need this key in order to access the next part of this dungeon. And this game actually has an interesting element to it that we kind of didn't really touch up on. If you clear out a room and it has like a shutter door that blocks your way, that shutter door will stay open pretty much forever. Until your next playthrough, at least.
We're going to see a lot of mini-bosses in this dungeon, which really tests the runner's ability to kind of use the resources that they have remaining, in addition to kind of really pulling off some clever optimized movements that kind of take advantage of the amount of resources they have, in addition to just kind of mastering the the boss fights themselves. It's a very technical dungeon in that regard.
Yeah, both of our runners here. There's actually a good bit of like movement tech in this dungeon and a couple little optimizations that were found, I think, relatively recently. Just like with the hook shot here.
Both runners pulling that off perfectly, just jumping and then skewing slightly downwards as we saw in Dungeon 5, just to get the direct shot on the block instead of having to take 2 seconds to walk around and then get a vertical shot.
We're going to enter Blano, which with 8 well-timed slashes, you can actually one-cycle this boss. Typically, this boss will take about, I think it's like 3 or 4 slashes before he'll turn around and block your sword slings. Oh, not a very generous fight there for Glenn. Tej getting the one cycle.
Glenn very wise there. It was a very tricky fight in the sense that Blano can be immensely unpredictable with its movements, and if you are just ever so slightly astray when he moves forward to punch, you could be on the edge of just like a game over. Like we saw Glenn with 1 heart, took the exact right move, just kind of being patient, waiting him out, waiting for the kind of the long charge punch, and then just going for the final hit. Could have been a riskier attempt to kind of get in and get a slash, but I think that was definitely the best approach. It paid off, but it's a very tricky fight in terms of RNG.
Yeah, definitely played that perfectly to, you know, just like with the health that he had.
Very smart move.
So pretty much like the rest of this dungeon, it's just a bit of a key collection and movement through. We do fight another mini boss here that we are familiar with from D4. So if we have a few donations, we can go ahead and get those in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have $20 from Anonymous. Link's Awakening DX was a surprise gift on my first overseas trip as a kid, and when this remake was announced, I was ecstatic. Have to donate in honor of Link, my favorite travel companion. Well, I hope that Link accompanies you all over the world, everywhere you go. And that $20 will help Doctors Without Borders help people wherever they go. We also have $25 from Bionic Shell Shock. I have to contribute a bit toward the security breach incentive. Fingers crossed that this bonus game makes it. Folks, again, we are more than 1/3 of the way through that incentive total, so keep that rolling on in. That is for later tonight. If you want to see Five Nights at Freddy's, get those donations in.
That was a really exciting series of cue ball fights. The really tricky thing about this cue ball specifically is, unlike the one that we saw in D4, we're actually manipulating a lot of the arrow usage here. So we kind of expend 5 arrows to shoot kind of vertically on a timer. So we're kind of like, again, very rhythmic, very patient, waiting for the cue ball to turn, and we fire and fire to make sure we trap it in that cycle. It looks like cue ball managed to barely escape one of Tej's arrows, which enabled Glan, who I think had a perfect 5 cycle on the cue ball, to catch up just a little bit of the loss that we saw with Blano. So already that lead that had grown there has already shrunk quite considerably, I think. So again, it's just drawing closer. That really represents a lot of this game's kind of like potential for optimization and just kind of like really tricky movements. Like runners are constantly battling against very, very difficult patterns that they have to account for.
All right, and coming up here, we have the boss of Dungeon 8, Hothead. So this boss is very interesting. The only thing that hurts this boss is the magic rod, which of course is the item that we picked up here in Dungeon 8. And the magic rod is actually going to remove the fire barrier that's on this boss, and then the boss just kind of like lies around the screen. We hit it, I believe it's 5 times, and then it'll split, revealing its final form here. and then we have to hit that final form 3 times, and then the boss just goes. Both runners here, just excellent fight there with the RNG that they were given.
That was a superb exhibition of Hothead by both. Really, really clean. And now we're more or less tied up again.
Yeah, Hothead can spawn at any lava pool in that entire room, and both runners just kind of showcasing just, hey, the execution from both of our runners is just phenomenal. So we're going to make our way back over here to D7, and we're just going to make our final climb up Eagle Tower. Or should I say, Sands Tower.
We're going to find out what Sans thinks about you demolishing his tower. I mean, it's kind of rude of Link, to be honest, just kind of walking in and saying, I think I can redecorate the place. Let's demolish these 4 pillars. We'll find out exactly what he thinks about that.
Both our runners making use of that portal that they opened before entering D7 before. They're just going to enter the sub-boss warp point. Use the nightmare key that they collected earlier, and just go straight to the boss.
It's really good to point out that Evil Eagle represents a real escalation in RNG and difficulty, and kind of, if we've talked a lot about this run kind of being a masterclass of maneuvering around enemy patterns, Eagle has plenty of them. Like, so many permutations of attacks that the runners are going to have to account for using their arrows. If they can slash, it's something that we'll really have to watch and analyze. It's RNG can, yeah, it's rough.
It's Sans. And his good pal, Evil Eagle. Yeah, this boss is pretty intense, honestly. Spin slashes will pretty much, I think you need 11 spin slashes or 11 arrows in order to take down this boss. Oof.
There we go. We saw Glenn get one of the feather patterns for Eagle, which can be slightly tricky to deal with. We can sometimes cancel it by climbing down the ladder, but depending on your positioning relative to the boss and what attacks you're doing, it can sometimes catch you out. But again, both great fights, well managed by both runners.
All right, while our runners make their quick descent down to D4, I think we have some time for a donation or two.
Absolutely. We have $15 from Robbie J, donating because I love GDQ and my wife loves Zelda, so check off 2 boxes with 1 donation. It probably won't be my last donation this week, so keep running them games. Thank you so much, Robbie J. Really appreciate it. We also have $100 from Dan. Love seeing GDQ back in person. Let's get the 5 nights at Freddy's incentive met. Folks, I know, I sound like a shill, but we're at $31,000. It's going so well. Keep it going. We can hit this bonus run. We have $200 from Vandio. 200K raised. Happy to be here for my first in-person GDQ. Let's have a great week. Thank you, Vandio. You have made it that much better with your donation.
All right, so coming up here, we actually have the absolute best dialogue box in the entire video game.
Definitively, no question, it is the best.
It is absolutely in German. It's the best dialogue box, and you'll see in just a moment as to why it is.
It's legendary.
Big minor optimization there. So we recently found out that if you access the little panels on the ground there with the correct code, which both of our runners did manip the starting file, which we actually didn't explain. So we know the patterns of both the egg and that little room in D4. If you exit the room and enter the room, it just spawns the staircase.
We also
Okay.
have that optimization for D1. Oh, here we go. We
Here we
need
go.
to frame this.
Hold on one second. So we have this boss here. Blubber, blubber. Blub, blub, blub. Butter. Blub. Blubber, blubber. Piranha killer.
Perfect rendition. Nice. Excellent.
Thank you. Really excellent fight there from Teach, and Glenn shortly after with another excellent fight.
Piranha
Both of
Killer
our-
is.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Piranha Killer has one of the really kind of interesting mechanics whereby if you perform exactly the same actions every time, it's very reliable. So it's kind of a refreshing boss in that regard. It's beholden entirely to the runner. Unlike Eagle, for example, which can react quite wildly and unpredictably that you have to react to, Piranha Killer will always react to you exactly the same way. So runners have kind of a very unique kind of flow and sometimes like quite idiosyncratic way of dealing with the boss. But yeah, we saw two runners, two different approaches, but handled excellently both.
I'd like to point out one last time, both of our runners here, we are at the end of this run. We are about to enter the Windfish's egg, and both of our runners are neck and neck here.
Yeah, so close, really close. It's been close the whole way through the race. Like even from the start, just there's never been more than a few seconds apart, really.
We are going to get another enjoying sound of Marin and Ballad of the Windfish here. So let's just enjoy this.
Yeah, we'll definitely let you enjoy this one.
Absolutely beautiful.
Wonderful cutscene. So there's so much to talk about in the closing moments. This race is going to come down to the final boss. Now there's
Yeah.
3 key places that can happen. The first one will be Aghanim, which is a boss that might be familiar to you if you've played other Zelda games. And then it will come down to Death Eye, and I think we'll approach those as we get to them. This is maybe a good chance, Ice, to explain the egg pattern that you'd mentioned before, like how we know to maneuver through this.
So when this game first came out in 2019, we did a lot of research on manipulating, figuring out like the egg path and how the egg path is determined. And we ended up creating like this very large like spreadsheet of like different egg patterns. And we found out that, starting the switch and waiting 28 seconds and starting the game and then selecting your file determined your path through the egg and the D4 puzzle pattern. So both of our runners here have a preset seed that we made a save with that preset egg pattern and that preset D4 pattern. And we just use this file over and over and over because it has one of the fastest egg patterns, which is right, up, left, up, 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 up.
It's final boss time.
Oh yeah, boss time. So this is Nightmare. Nightmare has, I believe, what is it, 5 forms?
Yep, 5 distinct phases, and we're on Aghanim now. And Aghanim is going to be a big decision point for this run.
So there is a 50-50 shot. So every first attack that that Aghanim does. So the first attack will always be a red orb, and then the next 3 attacks, or the next attack has a 50-50 chance of being either a red orb or what we like to refer to them as a blue ball. Blue ball you cannot reflect back to Aghanim. You just have to jump over it and avoid it. And then if Aghanim gives you 3 of the same pattern, 3 of the same attacks in a row, so if Aghanim gives you 3 red orbs, and then the next...
This is blowing my mind right now. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
They had exactly the same pattern.
Insane.
This doesn't happen. This does not happen. This could not... I did not expect that. This is incredible. This is so close. It's now going to come down to Death Eye. And there's 2 factors for Death Eye. Death Eye opens its eye at different speeds, slow, medium, fast. There's also a technique that we know as triples, where the player can skip a cycle. Normally 10 arrows are required to kill Death Eye, 2 arrows fired and 5 cycles. You can skip and get 4 if you hit Death Eye 3 times. That could make the difference.
Ooh, nice triple from Teach there. Teach delivering the final blow there. Wait for this. Time on Teach's side will be when the screen goes completely white from entering the stairs. Or black, sorry. That's time for Teach.
What a phenomenal race. That was
This
so
is
close.
Incredible race from both of our runners here. And then time's going to be coming up here when Glenn enters the top of that staircase and the screen goes completely dark. And time. Absolutely incredible race.
Phenomenal. Right to the end, kind of beat by beat, second by second. Runners just 1 second ahead of the other until the very end. That was a phenomenal effort by both runners. Truly incredible for this format.
I just want to say, I had both of our streams up, like in Discord, and watching like Glenn's gameplay. Oh my goodness, what a race!
Yeah, that race was amazing.
That was incredible.
That was so tense. Really amazing.
Glenn, big GGs. Big
GG,
GGs.
GG's to both of y'all. What an excellent
I wasn't
race.
watching, but apparently we were tied after Aghanim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we beat
screwed
Aghanim at exactly the same time. I saw what happened on Ganon.
Yeah. Oh, it was Moldor.